Welcome to Junior Sports Marketing, where we talk with the brands, athletes, and innovators pioneering youth sports. It's a $50 billion ecosystem, and it keeps growing. With nearly 50 million parents making up the world's most passionate fan base, this is the new frontier of sports marketing. All right, hey everyone, welcome back. I am Cameron Korab, your host, and today I am joined by Tyler Rutstein, who is the SVP of Global Brand and Americas Marketing at Under Armour. Tyler, welcome in.
Hey Cameron, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. This marketplace, and just to set the stage here, we're talking youth sports, brand involvement, and the innovators that are pioneering in this space. What better brand than Under Armour to kind of lead us in from apparel space? But yeah, let's dive in. The first question I love to ask people, and it's sort of an icebreaker. Just picture yourself at a coffee shop or grabbing a drink with a friend. I do this with my brothers and sometimes my good buddies, where we go around the circle and we're just like, what do you do at work, right? And it's a simple question, but you'd be surprised how much it trips people up. So I'll ask you, Tyler, what do you do at work?
Well, speaking of brothers, I have two older brothers, and they have collectively made fun of me throughout my career at various points and just said, oh, he works in concepts, because they have very traditional careers and very specific roles, where mine can be somewhat broad and touch on so many different aspects of the industry, whether it's sports, athletes, marketing, campaigns, media, retail. So it's funny that you say that. But specifically, my role is day-to-day overseeing the Americas marketing across all of our touch points that you would know as a consumer. So whether you look for your best new compression shirt or football cleats or overall apparel, wherever you might buy it, wherever you might engage with it, whether it's on your phone or on the TV, I'm looking after all those touch points and who the athletes are that you might see wearing it on your favorite Sunday football game or MLB baseball game. Really just looking at the marketplace and also just trying to drive our creative. Started about a year and a half ago and been trying to bring a new creative force and definitely a little bit more of a youthful interpretation of what Under Armour can be in this new act.
Yeah, love it. I mean, I'm pretty tapped into the space as a whole, so don't use me as a population of one here, but I've taken note of it. Just your guys' whole ethos around sports in general, and then obviously what we're here to talk about today, youth. There's definitely a new energy. So kudos to you and the team for kind of bringing that to the forefront. Yeah. Let's talk goals here, right? You crush it for this year. You've been crushing it for the last year and a half, right? Like, what does that success look like to you as a team at the end of the year, at the end of the quarter, or whatever that guardrail might be?
Yeah, I mean, if you boil it down at its simplest, and this is what our president says, we have to sell more shirts and shoes. And so my brand work, our marketing efforts, our campaigns, our retail store environments, they should all sort of ladder up to how do we sell more shirts and shoes. But I also would take it a click further. In a way, I'm trying to really reclaim the brand identity, give the brand a new spark again. And I think about sentiment as a brand, so positive or negative, but ideally trying to have a bit more positive perception in the marketplace. You can also think about it, when you see our work, when you see our athletes engaging with Under Armour, does it make you take out your phone and type in underarmour.com? Mm-hmm. Does it make you try and find us at a Dick's Sporting Goods or several of our other retailers or our own stores in general? And so when I think about the year ahead and closing it out, my sort of stance always to my team is one consumer at a time. How do we win the day? How do we win a new cohort? In a lot of different ways, Under Armour has been cruising with a large customer base, and I want to honor and entertain and make sure that they feel the love, but also the goal is acquisition. And it's a good reason why we're talking, because when I think about acquisition, I'm trying to acquire that next generation of team sport.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And yeah, it's a coincidence we're talking, and a lot of the efforts that we're going to talk through at the end of this, right, are are positioned in that front, and it will be great for, not only me, but the audience to kind of hear your thinking on that and obviously what you can share. But last icebreaker here. I'm sure you've seen the movie Wayne's World. If you haven't, we'll send you the clip. But there's a scene in there where Rob Lowe's character is talking to the guys about a guest on their show who is a sponsor, and Wayne and Garth proceed to do all this fun kind of joking of brand partnerships, right? They hold up a Doritos bag. They hold up a pizza box. I'll bleep this, but one of Garth is wearing a full Reebok jumpsuit. At the end, they do the new print, which is like aspirin, little yellow different, right? Like that is obviously a farce to brand partnerships. But with that in mind, right? Like when you think brand partnerships, when you think sponsorship, whatever word you want to use, what does that mean to you, right? Like not just slapping a logo on it, but the actual true nature of a partnership with, within this ecosystem.
There's a lot of different ways I can slice and dice that question. Great reference, first and foremost.
Thank you.
Secondly, I always say there's a ton of authenticity and shared values that go into making an amazing brand partnership, whether it's with a person, a property, or a league or a team. And we have to overanalyze that across the entire spectrum of ideals and like what we're ultimately trying to execute against. So when we start with that, I also like to look into what are some of the things that we're complementary in. And so as an example, like we are founded on the football field. Kevin Plank, our founder, played football at Maryland, was a walk-on, has that underdog mentality. And does that really lean into our ethos in terms of like the partner or the platform that we might be analyzing? Also, I think you might ask me about like John Boy or Unrivaled Sports, who we recently did partnerships with. For us, they're a natural partner. We're complementary towards each other, and they help us tap into new audiences and new segments, particularly a more youthful one, which is a good reason why I'm sure we're talking. And so when I look at them and I look at the audience development happening there and really going to those places, ultimately as Under Armour, I'm trying to find like where we can have an outsized share of voice in sport and cultural moments that our competition really can't. And so those partnerships are a way of finding that end result. And so that's how I look at a lot of the different things that we're doing across athletes, teams, and platforms.
Yeah, and like I talked about earlier, like I can feel it wholeheartedly come through from obviously Unrivaled. It's a little bit more in my lane, but the media companies that you're partnering with, all the content that's coming out of it, man, even down to, we'll get to this a little bit later, but scrolling through UA football, right? It's like, oh my God, like this is the next wave of how content is done internally, right? But it's putting your guys' brand at such a high elevated level, and the end consumer really isn't seeing obviously behind the scenes work, but it's coming through, right? For my eyes as a consumer and as someone who kind of has a sneak peek into the back end. So yeah, once again. All right, cool. Let's move into some of Under Armour specifics here.
Okay.
My earliest memories of Under Armour, Click Clack, Cam Newton. I had the OG black cleats with like the screw top cleats in for football when I was maybe like in 5th or 6th grade. My teammate, Eddie Gertis, shout out Eddie, at the time, came to me and was like, Cam, did you hear that they're opening an Under Armour store at the local mall? And I had really no idea, but he was jacked up about it. So kids feeling this, is special, right? Kids getting involved, their parents at such a young age is important, not only for them, but for a brand, right? So as we look to Under Armour, right, in the sense of let's park on football here for a minute, right? Yeah. Girls flag, right? You guys are doing so much here and pioneering this space in my eyes. You got your Click Clack initiative, the Next Air grant, work with Dick's, all the high school associations that have now sanctioned girls. I think today is 23 states
Awesome.
Obviously leading up to something, LA Olympics 2028. But, walk us through some of those initiatives. Walk us through like what has led to that. Obviously, some of it started before your time, but a lot of it is catching fire now that you're kind of at the helm.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back to, first of all, Cam Newton and I were freshmen at the University of Florida together. To give you a fun fact, he obviously and didn't stay, and I finished there, but he went on to be very successful, as you know. For us, flag football isn't just a peripheral objective that we have. It's a primary one in terms of how we approach football, which is our goal is to be number one at that sport and think about it through all the different dimensions and subcultures. So when I go back to, last year we were coming out with, my seat in my new to the role, like what's our big brand statement? And in September, that was We Are Football, which was our 3-minute film. That was really like our next brand chapter where we were going to set the scene and really kind of give everyone a peek into like, this is the new marketing offense coming from Under Armour. And if you're familiar, there's been a huge wave of 7-on-7 football.
Yes, sir.
In my past career role, we created a 7-on-7 football league. I noticed that's where all the alphas were playing, all the social media trends and highlights were really being captured there, and all the players that would go on to become, the top dogs at the biggest and best schools were really starting to play in this new style. And so we created this whole We Are Football film based off of a 7-on-7 football game. But we also, in parallel, have been investing a ton within women's flag. And so I wanted to sort of create this narrative on how we're continuing to build towards that as we set the scene. And there's a lot of things and insights that I took in. We met with the NFL as an example, and I might be off by a number or two, but they told us that 60% of the girls in Georgia, the first sport they play is flag football. We're also seeing participation across the country really explode. And when it comes down to like Under Armour's core ethos and like why we exist, another good reason is, I'm also going to butcher this number, but some really high percentage of women that play varsity sports in high school and college, those are the ones that go on to really become executives at companies and really have that first moment of confidence, really play in a team dynamic. And we know this gender agnostic, like what sports can mean for young athletes and the confidence and the creativity and everything that it can build. And so when I go back to Under Armour's why, I'm like, this is where we want to be and this is where we want to play. And from the grants that you spoke to, even just getting coaches the skills and the understanding and the referees on how to referee flag football, which is also something that doesn't necessarily get talked about, but it's a massive unlock to increase participation, not only in the US, but around the world. And so we started being first movers, really signing young flag football athletes, primarily on the women's side. We have Deanna Flores, who's the captain of the Mexican national team, regarded as one of the best players in the game. You see the NFL really behind her and behind this initiative overall with flag. We signed Ashley Clam, who's on Team USA. And so we started to really build out like them as a marketing engine. Of course, there's the road to LA 2028. And I want to sort of understand, like, how can we not only shift culture, but really like define what this sport's potential can become. And when we had the girls at the end of our large We Are Football campaign come intercept the pass and kind of signal like they got next, we followed that up with our Super Bowl campaign, which was a reinvention of the 20-year anniversary of Click Clack, all through the lens of women's flag football. So taking what you would probably remember as maybe one of the most masculine spots of its era 20 years ago, and now feminizing it in a way through the lens of them. And I'm on text exchanges with them, and they're telling me how they would want to imagine the game. And so we had the real scenes and the aura scenes. And in the aura scenes, they're like, I want to think about it as an SEC level atmosphere in terms of how we're playing and how that game might be presented, particularly as we go towards the Olympics in 2028 when it's an official sport. And so we leaned in and we invested early, and we've been championing the athletes just as you would imagine us championing the biggest and best pros across the NFL and other leagues as well. And so we think that will pay dividends not only in the short term, but also in the mid to long term. And it's an integral part of our strategy as we think about all the dimensions of football and really winning with her at the end of the day too.
Yeah, man, I would get that's like a award-winning speech. So very well put. Yeah, it's something, we'll get to it in a minute, but I've got a couple nieces. I've seen it here in the Chicagoland area. Just the absolute growth of the game on the girls' end is something that, if I have a daughter one day, I would love to, give her that experience that, a lot of, the ladies that I grew up with, just didn't have because it just wasn't available. And whether it's a stigma thing or whatnot, Under Armour pushing, the ability to play is one that really sticks out, and kudos to the team on that. But, as you sort of mentioned, in a past life, the 7-on-7 game, you guys obviously had a big role in, OT7 and, Gunna's team and all that good stuff, right? Like that's culture. That's definitely putting that next layer to a brand, right? Like let's talk through that. Like what is the thinking there of, these creator led, obviously a lot, very, very heavy media driven leagues, teams. You're getting tons of content out of it. Is someone boots on ground there, getting behind the scenes? Is it you're just leading it up to the team, right? Like strategy there. I'd love to dive in there a little bit as you can share.
Yeah, I mean, I'll share as much as you want. But I honestly, it's not like the blueprint in my mind is invisible or unavailable to our competition. Sure. It's all out there. Yeah. And what I'm trying to do ultimately is the simple thing, but the simple thing is really the hard thing. Yeah. And that is like really having a connected ecosystem across it. So Gunna, as an example that you mentioned, he was in our We Are Football campaign in September, and he was arguably like the most celebrated cameo if you looked at the comment section of all of our posts. But we didn't go in with Gunna through like the lens of sportswear or fashion. We went in through the lens of like authentic football, and we did that because he has a 7-on-7 football team, the Wanna Warriors, and he's all about community and he's all about give back. And so we also partner with his team, and they went to the OT7 championships actually this past weekend, and we are boots on the ground there, making sure we have coverage, and that's a part of our UA Next and UA Football approach, especially on social. And then of course Overtime does their thing, probably best in class in terms of all the highlights and content coverage of those respective teams. And if you think about it too, like we even just had Deanna Flores's flag football camp with, I think it was about 75 girls in Mexico City. Wow. And she's teaching on and on. We've been doing that for three years now. We also have several more, and that's a good reason why we also are partnered with Unrivaled, just based off of their platform and how many girls in flag football in general we work with there. But for me, at the end of the day, I'm trying to connect the dots across the entire ecosystem. So when you think about a pinnacle camp like Deanna's, or even one we just did with Justin Jefferson and Flight School with the best high school wide receivers, the best way I could simplify it is like, what is our NFL films that really like draws you in and gives you that access? Because I know for a fact, particularly during my Overtime days, the youth want access to aspirational and educational content from the pro athletes. And the more you can sort of reduce the barrier between fan and athlete, or athlete and pro athlete, or superstar athlete, the more that content will be engaged, shared, and overall change perception too of your brand. That's really the one putting that platform together. So when I think about all the verticals that we have across UA Next and athlete camps that we're doing, how do I connect those dots, make them a YouTube episodic series, make that something snackable via social? And then how do I invite all those platforms to come in and be on set with us, from the NFL to the LCCs to those teams to the Overtimes of the world and other media entities? Like that's a way in which like our media dollars end up working 10 times harder, because that's just great organic coverage that the youth ultimately want to see at the end of the day too. So it's really like, it's hacking the media system, which sometimes is a little bit of my secret sauce in a way, but also like really just making original content that people want to see, and particularly our 16 to 24 team sport athlete that we're going after.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that, to be honest, like these next, couple questions are riffs off of kind of what you already rolled through, right? Like you said the ecosystem that you're building, right, is a special hodgepodge of a lot of different things. And one of those things is your own IP, right? UA Next obviously is a growing, budding property in your ecosystem. Justin Jefferson Flight School, right? Yep. Those are things that are unique to any property, right, or any brand. You said it better than just now, that the blueprint really isn't crazy. Like, it's out there. It's just how you execute on it, right? Yeah. So with that in mind, right, you have your guys' own IP. You have these, what I like to call the big league the big league moments for kids, the Unrivaled, the Ripkins, the youth flag football world championships, all that good stuff, right? So how do you come through as a brand authentically with those, right? And then, you already kind of hit on it, but where do those fit in your ecosystem of, there's a delineation here of, your own IP and partnering with an established property to kind of fit the mold of Under Armour, and really bring through, your messaging, especially in football, obviously. Kind of walk me through that strategy and like, how do you choose those partnerships? How do you choose to keep the flight school going? All that, that people might not, that aren't in our shoes might not understand.
Yeah, it's definitely sometimes a question that isn't as easily explained to a board, where you have to show an ROI on a particular investment. But when you think about it, and I was just having a similar parallel conversation, but excuse the tangent, if you look at Gunna as an example, is YouTube, when he publishes a music video, it gets tens of millions of 20 million in the 20 million views, right?
Yeah.
The views are excellent, but that is also the similar KPI that we might have for our own brand campaigns, in a sense, on like, we want to get X amount of views and we want this amount of impressions. Yep. If at the end of the day I said, I'm just going to do a music video for Gunna for his next album, like, that in a sense today is a brand campaign, because in so many ways it is crazy to think about this. People are paying to not see the work that I'm doing. Like, you are paying to not get ads served to you across probably Netflix and so on and so forth. And my sole job is to actually like feed you ads, right? In theory. So how do I create other avenues with that constraint in mind, where it's brand entertainment, but also everyone's like maybe first touch point into the Under Armour universe? And so when Justin Jefferson says he wants to do a camp where he gives back to 25 of the best high school wide receivers, I'm like, immediately, how can we make that into an episodic series on YouTube, and also use it as a way to integrate products, use it as a better way to make Justin Jefferson more famous and every 12-year-old's favorite player. We're going to do the same thing actually next week with Cam Ward and some of the top QBs in the country right here in our backyard headquarters. We're going to do one with Bobby Witt Jr. So there hasn't been like a really cool shortstop camp. And awesome. He also wants to do one. Coach Rac does one called Not Your Average Baseball Camp. Oh, yeah. That is his own IP that we just partner and help service, because he's extraordinary and he's an incredible mentor to so much youth, and that is like a bigger focus of him as an athlete. So when you think about partnership, like why we would want to work with someone like him, he's inspiring the next generation of baseball players like none other. And so we just want to be a part of his ecosystem, even if it's not our own Under Armour IP. And we're doing that with Deanna Flores from a flag football side. And from there, you then create this larger sort of media strategy that is beyond a 30 or a 60-second commercial, and is really showing you like we're the most authentic in the sports space. We're helping that next generation of top athletes, but not all of those, not all of the top athletes in the world can have the opportunity to physically be at those camps. So how do we then turn that into content that can also educate, can also inspire, and can also make you feel a certain way about Under Armour at the end of the day? And I think that's like what's differentiated across what we're trying to do ultimately from potentially other brands.
Yeah, and you're starting to see that sort of trend is not the right word, but strategy in the pro clubs, in college. Very few select brands. I think you guys are doing it very well of bringing that content creation in house. Obviously, you have your own studio, and it's allowing. You kind of said it. You're being handcuffed. There's nothing against 30-second spots and 60-second spots, but this allows you to take that next step into really engaging with the customer and at any level you want, and not being handcuffed to an NFL Sunday game or an NBA game or what have you. And it's interesting to see all the other brands and all the other leagues and operators on all levels, right? College, pro, youth, kind of rolling out that internal strategy versus not as heavily maybe in the past relying on a media outlet to kind of bring that strategy to life. I got 2 quick mailbags for you.
Hi Tyler, Coach Rac from the Savannah Bananas does the best backflip catches, and now he's wearing Under Armour. I have a few questions for you. What is it like working with him? Have you ever seen him do a backflip in real life? And is he that funny off of camera?
That's an amazing question. So funny enough, Cameron, to take it full circle with you, I met you at the Dick's Sporting Goods Varsity Summit in Tampa earlier this year. I also met Coach Rac there last year, and I was doing a panel conversation with Haley and Hannah Cavender there, and I walked up to Coach Rac, and I am a big Savannah Bananas fan of everything they're doing, and Jesse and Jared and their whole way of thinking about sports in the world and all of that. And I used to teach a class called Sports Branding at the University of Florida. The book that I had everyone read for our class is Fans First by Jesse Cole, the book about the Savannah Bananas. Recommend that book to every single person. And so when I saw Coach Rac, I was like, dude, are you signed? Like, we need to work together. And immediately worked with him, and out on the spot, I threw him a ball, and he, with a coffee in his hand, with a lid, did a backflip, and he FaceTimed my nephew for me, the whole thing. God. And he is a class act. He is probably like a top tier brand ambassador across the board. He just gets it. He does amazing short form content, does amazing long form YouTube content. And he's a great Under Armour ambassador. He rocks us for games. He rocks us off the field. He's in several of our brand campaigns that we do, also with Dick's Sporting Goods specifically. And he is just as amazing on the field as he is off the field as a person, and the way in which he gives back and hosts Bible study for a lot of his teammates in the community. And if you just look at the comments on a lot of his social posts, there's a ton of moms saying thank you for being such a positive role model for my son or my daughter to look up to. And that kind of tells you everything when it comes to why he's such a special person.
Hi, my name is Finley. I'm 9 years old and I'm interested in playing flag football. Who are the best flag football players I should watch? Or is there any big events coming up?
Where does Finley live?
Finley's actually my almost next door neighbor. She is in Chicago
as well.
Yeah.
I would say for her, she should keep an eye on Team USA and follow them. They're doing a ton of content around flag. She should follow Ashley Clam, who lives in Texas and goes to college in Florida and is one of the top players on Team USA. Izzy as well, who also is creating a ton of content, doing one-handed catches and all sorts of motivational and inspiring flag football work and technical skill sets and everything like that. And if you go to Deanna Flores' page too, she's incredible. Some of her movements on dodging, defenders so she can slide by has been awesome, and she's a great quarterback as well. So those would be my top three. But you're really starting to see it everywhere, which is amazing. And I'm glad she asked that question, because we want her playing and we want her up there competing for Team USA's roster spots in several Olympics to come.
That would be a dream come true for Uncle Cam. You know, just because you have the reach of, you know, kind of what we were talking about of media outlets, what have you, creators, doesn't mean the impact is necessarily there, right? I think something that I know I caught from you when we were down in Tampa at the Dick's sporting events is that exact sort of connotation. So to end it here, like, Under Armour impact, building genuine loyalty with young athletes and young families, like, give the people one thing to walk away with in how you're planning and how you are, you know, currently doing that.
In regards to like a youth sports strategy, or just like marketing in general?
Yeah, probably marketing in general. Obviously, you know, youth is down the lines of that. But yeah, just in general, right?
I think at the end of the day, to put it like the most simply, like, we try everything that we do, especially since I've started, it needs to cut through creatively. And there has to be a level to our creative that resonates. And if we are just doing media for the sake of media, because we are this larger company and brand with this machine of working dollars, then we are not doing what we ultimately are trying to achieve. And I've said this example multiple times, like, if you want me to go buy a Super Bowl spot, I could go do that. But at the end of the day, like, is that the best use of our dollars? And are there alternative strategies that could be just as effective or just as engaged with and just as visible? And so that's what I've been trying to distill within the team, and really just think in the sense that, like, people don't necessarily buy products. They buy clarity, they buy consistency, they buy story, and they ultimately buy your identity, right? We're a logo brand. And so I think it's some crazy youth, probably marketing expert. You know, you've probably heard this before. Like, a 6-year-old knows by the time they get a car, they want a Porsche, and that Porsche is red, you know? And so how can I think about, like, by the time this 8-year-old who's dad's on the Game Changer app wants to go play football or baseball, wants this color bubblegum bat with bubblegum cleats, and like that whole story, how can they think of us? And so I am hardwired, and every day waking up and thinking through those types of approaches that allow us to not just really be a trend, but ultimately be like the go-to brand for that next generation of athlete. And a lot of those things that inform that are youth marketing tactics.
Yeah, well said. And this didn't happen by coincidence, but I was folding laundry for my little guy today, and this came out of the laundry.
There we go.
You've got the customer loyalty at the Korab household.
Appreciate
Tyler,
that.
thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate you coming on. You know, this stuff is growing rapidly. We appreciate all the work you're doing at Under Armour and beyond, and keep up the good work, my man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good luck with the future of the podcast as well. Excited for you.